everybody. This is Dr. Christy Taylor, and welcome to another episode of the CareerCoachRx Podcast. And today we are here live with career coach Ann Shields. She is a career professional with over 25 years of leadership experience in college and university career services. We are excited to have her today. She is the founder of Lighthouse Career Coaching. And thank you so much for joining us today. And we're excited to have you. And we're talking about the Great Resignation. And that is a great topic today because we're going to talk about job transition, but we're also going to prepare ourselves for the new years ahead and talk about leaving behind the old and bringing in the new. So if you're joining me live on TikTok, we have Ann Shields here today. She is a certified career coach with over 25 years of experience. You can see the live video feed by joining us on Facebook, YouTube, and our StreamYard platform. So Ann, thank you so much for being here today. We're excited to have you. And go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to get into career coaching.
Sure. And thanks, Christy, for inviting me to join you and your audience today. I did not plan to be a career coach. And I'm pretty sure most of us don't grow up thinking, when I grow up, I want to be a career coach. It's the kind of thing that you find yourself in, as it is with many people with many careers. I was a history major. I love to learn, but history companies don't come to campus and recruit. So, I was like, well, history, I can teach. Wrong answer. I could be a lawyer. Not a chance. So I could be an archivist or librarian. That's not going to work either. So I didn't know what the world of work is. And when you tell people, oh, you can be anything you want, that's not helpful if you don't know what's out there. I had a great mentor who helped me think about career decision-making in a way that I hadn't heard of before. And that is to start with myself. What am I interested in? What are the skills I have that I actually like to use? What's important to me? Yeah. And from there, I said, well, I'd like to be a grown-up full-time camp counselor. And well, that wasn't likely to happen. But then she helped me think about where would those skills and those values come into play. And I found myself thinking, I'd like to work on a university campus with young adults, teaching them, but I don't want to be in a classroom. Okay, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I started off working in residence life and then really missed kind of the education piece. And I started working as an intern in a career center and loved it. I knew right away that it matched my skills, interests, and values. So I continued down that path, loving it, moving into leadership roles. And then the strangest thing happened. It's life. Life happened. And I found myself being attracted by titles and paychecks. And I found myself veering away from the thing that gave me joy.
Isn't that amazing, right? How we always, I do want to say this. I don't know if it's a thing with history teachers, but you don't know this about me, but I also teach history. And here we are, both career coaches, right? And somebody asked me, what inspired you to be a career coach? I don't think, it's exactly what you said. When you're younger, I don't think sitting around, nobody's like, hey, I want to be a career coach. Now, I do remember at 19, this was something that I was truly passionate about. I always thought it would be in the form of career counseling, like, the counselors, that same path that you were on. But to your point, we progress in our careers, and then we get to a point where the titles and the paycheck and all those great things become important, right? Because we want the recognition for our hard work. So here you are in the midst of your career. You've transitioned from what you're truly passionate about. You're chasing the titles, and then what happens?
Well, I'm the sole breadwinner. My husband actually stayed home and raised the kids, and is the trailing spouse. And I started thinking about, well, all the weight's on me. I've got to be doing this. I have to be successful. I have to grow in my field. And I lost me along the way. And it took me multiple years of growing unhappiness and declining physical and mental health to realize I needed to get out of where I was. It was toxic for me, the environment, the culture, the skills I were using. I didn't like using them, and I wasn't really good at them. There's a lot of detail oriented and planning. I'm a big picture person. So I did something that all career coaches always tell their clients: don't quit without a job. I quit without a job. But I also knew that I was so, the word that comes to mind is disabled. I had been so unhappy in my work. I couldn't think my way out of, well, what else do I want to do? I wanted out. That's all I knew. I was running away from something rather than professionally moving to something. So I took some time to get to know myself again, to recalibrate, and to think about what work is meaningful to me. What are the skills, the values, and the interests? And curiously, it brought me back around full circle. I went from being a director the director of a program at a university, alumni relations. I was far away from the career stuff, almost never saw students, never had one-on-one conversations. I planned events. I was not good at it, and I didn't like it. But when I came back around after taking some time to get to know me again, I found myself saying the happiest I ever was when I was doing career coaching. I want to do that again. And so here I am, back at it.
It's something about being able to help people find their way. And I think that so many times as people in leadership positions, as coaches, that we have to also remember to live the life that we preach, right? Because, I in my coaching business, one of the things I always espouse to clients is, the holistic perspective of coaching, right? It is not just an element of, I'm going to do your resume and then send you out to the world. That is more to it than that. There's the holistic side, and the things that I hear you say, all of the things that we tell people, make sure that you take care of those 8 dimensions of wellness: your physical, mental, your spiritual, all of those things. Sometimes in our careers, and I'm not just speaking from a coaching perspective or leadership perspective, I'm talking about the everyday person. Because when we're growing up, we're often told, hey, go to college, live that lifestyle of going to college, graduate, get a great job, rise in your career field, go be great, right? That's that definition of success. But sometimes within that definition, we forget that piece of holistic success is making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. So when you found yourself as a coach in that same situation, and you decided to take this big leap of, I'm going to leave this behind, what were your immediate feelings, and what were your next steps in that process?
I took a leap of faith.
Yeah.
When I started a business, I decided I'd never want to go back into an academic office again at an academic institution. The politics have changed. The culture has changed. The students have changed. The parents have changed. And I knew that wasn't going to work for me anymore. But I also knew that was the only place I ever had a paycheck. So for me, it was a leap of faith, and also the belief that from my husband that I could do this and make it work. You and I shared something in common. We both work with young adults. Well, I primarily did with liberal arts kids who were really lost and confused, like I was. Lost and confused history majors. And I still do work a fair amount with young adults, helping them think about not just what do I want to do, but who do I want to be? What's going to be important for me beyond, as you said, beyond the work? It's the whole life thing. So I approach my coaching with more of a life coaching view, but it's focused on who am I and how will I be in the world? How will I operate in the world? How will I make a difference in the world? It may be through a job. It may be through volunteering. It may be through parenting. It may be through their church community. I don't know. I'm not them.
I think we really have to get away from that definition that work is the defining moment of life. It's a portion of your life, right? Your work is just a portion of your life. Yes, it takes up a lot of time, but you are so much more, right, than just your job. You're so much more. And I just want you to espouse on that because I love that approach, right? So typically when people come to me, they are either, I work backwards. We were talking about this yesterday, right? I got to work backwards because typically when people come to me, it's going to be for that baseline, hey, I want to get a resume and I want to do LinkedIn. And we can do all that stuff, but then when we generally get to talking, I like to use an approach called rational emotive behavioral therapy processes, where I really get the client to take a deep dive. But again, most of them, when they come to me, it's an initial boom. I'm lost. I need a job. But getting them to take that deep dive to realize that you are so much more than your career. And so I love the fact that you start this process up front. And so if I would love you to just expound on that. And then if I were to come to you, what is the first question that you're going to ask me as a potential client?
Believe it or not, I'm going to ask you, go back into your childhood as far as you can go. What was it that you wanted to be when you grew up? Go back as young as, I wanted to be the Pope. I grew up in a Catholic family, so I wanted to be the Pope. I mean, some people, someone told me once, I wanted to be a dolphin. I know it's completely irrational. I couldn't do it, but to go way back, to get the imagination re-engaged, I think we lose that critical piece of ourselves as we grow up. We're told it's not practical, you can't do it, you won't get a job in it, it won't pay enough. And so we stop imagining things that could make us happy. And I think about talking about the Great Resignation, Christy, it was happening before COVID. People were unhappy, but there wasn't the catalyst to do something about it. When COVID came along and people were working from home and they weren't commuting and they weren't dealing with office politics and the toxicity of everything that happens in many workplaces, they realized they were more than their jobs.
They were.
And that really, I believe, catapulted so many of the people who resigned during those years. They just couldn't continue to exist as the person they were with work as their identity.
Let me give you some facts. So if you guys are tuning in from TikTok, if you're listening in, I want to give you some facts about the Great Resignation because we're going to get into that piece, right? So the Great Resignation, here's a few facts. Since March 2020, it says that, to your point, a lot of people decided to leave their job. And this is an article from Zappia.com. It says that on average, 4 million Americans were quitting their jobs each month in 2022. In the month of August 2022, 4.2 million Americans quit their job. The month with the most American resignations was November 2021, really right at the heart of this COVID thing. To your point, when a whopping 4.5 million people, they quit their jobs, and throughout 2021, on average, 3.98 million workers left their jobs every single month. And throughout that period, over 47 million Americans left their jobs by the end of 2021. And to the last point here, 40% of employees are thinking about leaving their job within the next 3 to 6 months, right? This is a whole different mindset from this generation of the generation where I come up from, and even probably you, and where it's like when you get a job, you stay, right? It takes a lot for us, for our generation to step out on faith. But Gen Z, no problem. I see a lot of younger people like, okay, I'm going to work 2 years, and then I'm going to move on to the next thing, right? My generation is like, okay, you get that job at that college, or you get that good government job, you stay there for 25, 30 years. There would be nothing in my mind to retire, right? Because I need a pension, or you're thinking about those years there. So, what is your response to that? You see these numbers, it really reinforces exactly what you just said about the Great Resignation. Christian,
excuse me, I'm going to say something that this is a first world problem.
Yeah.
We, most of us in the United States can choose to leave their job they're in and find another one. That's not possible for everyone in the world. You know, if you have work to feed your family, and in this country, working 2 or 3 part-time jobs and still not able to feed your family, you can't up and quit because your boss ticks you off. You know, you have to just put your head down and fight to keep the job because you got to feed your kids and heat the house. So the Great Resignation really hit a portion of the population who had the freedom to be able to say, I'm out of here. So there's some socioeconomic classism stuff going on too. I just want to put that in for the context.
Let's talk about it. I mean, if you have the data in front of you, because that is so true. We see so much. I see, I'm always on TikTok or learning these social media platforms, and I see so much. Right, and typically that's going to be those college-educated, high-demand jobs where people can float, and you know that you can go from job to job. But this in the real world, it's a balance, right? Because that's a real world for those who live that life, right? And not everybody's able to resign, right? And not everybody's able to move. So if you find yourself in that position, right, where I want better, I want to achieve more, I want to do more, but right now, that's why I say the job, it cannot be your life, right? Because for some people, not everybody's in a position to just up and quit, So definitely share more. I mean, you're right. It's such a first world problem, but I would also say I agree too that it's an economic thing too to be able to have that ability to move around and make a decision to I'm going to resign or quit from my job, right? So the Great Resignation wasn't that great for everybody. That's a great point.
No. And at the tail end of the Great Resignation was last fall and winter, a year ago, fall and winter, when there were thousands and thousands and thousands of people being laid off from tech jobs, which was supposed to be the thing that we could all go to and be safe in eventually. I think there are kind of different things happening right now. I think people find themselves without work from having been outplaced, or a parent or caregiver who's been home for a long time, out of the workforce, and now they're trying to figure out, who am I now? Who will I be? So I think that there's that part of the population that I have been a mother, I have been a tech worker. Who am I now if I don't have that job? My identity is so closely tied. But for the people who are, I want something better, I work with them in typically one of 2 ways. One is, how desperate are you to get out? Are you unsafe in the situation? Are you, it's so unhealthy for you that you're taking family medical leave just because your mental health and stress levels are so bad? For someone like that, I might suggest that they think about getting a job to make money, to leave where they are and get to a safe place where they can make some money and have time to get their feet back on the ground, recover, and find themselves again. And not everybody can afford to do that, because sometimes those make money jobs, you don't make a whole lot of money in, but it gives them a stepping stone, a landing place from which to move.
For other people, there's dignity in work. There is dignity in work. So not every job, and I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but I just want to reemphasize the point, right? Because I have a lot of young people that listen to me too. And to Ann's point, that if you can't find a job, or if you're in a situation where you need to get to that safe space, or you can't find that dream job, but you know that you need to take care of yourself, there is dignity in work. And I think that we sometimes miss that point, right? Or, we have in our mind that we have to be at a certain place or at a certain level. But sometimes you just got to start. There is dignity in work. So thank you so much for saying that. And including that.
I stocked produce at a grocery store after I quit my job as a high-paid director at a university office, because I needed to get grounded again. So I stocked bananas and kumquats and those bags of lettuce
I
just
have
to
been
have
way
some money
through.
coming in. I needed to have money coming in, and it was a job where I felt like I had some dignity and I was treated well and I could treat other people well. So that's an example of just get out, get grounded, and then think about what else. I
And
work
to
with
the
some
other
other.
point too, Ian, is that if you are in a successful position, right, and financial hardship comes, again, getting that second job or doing what you need to do from that Dave Ramsey perspective, there is dignity in work. You should not feel any type of way. And I had to do the same thing. I worked part time as CVS. I've driven DoorDash. I've done it all. Even at this level. So just remember that you are, your job is not a defining. It's just a moment in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing.
But culturally, we made it our lives.
Yeah.
So anytime you meet somebody, they're like, who are you? What do you do? They're looking for a job title. They're not looking for what you believe in or what you find interesting or what you do for fun. If you answer it that way, they think you're really strange. It's our identities continue to be our work. For people who can't afford to get out right now and they need that income, they need more time to make a transition, then we start thinking about longer range planning, including what can you do to make your current work situation more sane for yourself? A lot of times, and I said it myself, the boss is never going to change. The culture is never going to change. Hey, we're back. There you go. I was letting myself, I became really passive. I let things move me along in a direction where I could see I was getting more and more unhappy, but I didn't do much about it. I thought I'm going to turn myself into the person they want me to be. Well, that was an absolute failure. I couldn't be somebody I wasn't. But there probably were some things that I could have done to make my situation better for myself. A couple of people out of Stanford, uh, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, wrote a book called Designing Your Life. And they wrote a second book called Designing Your Work Life. And the first, it's a funny story. They came out with their first version of Designing Your Work Life. And 2 weeks after it was released, COVID hit. And they realized that what they wrote needed major revision. So they immediately started working on the second edition. And it's about work as we are finding it now, sometimes remote, sometimes not, hybrid, lots of teamwork, lots of tech included. And they have some great things in their book about how to make your workplace more sane. And it all circles back to and it doesn't surprise me because it circled back for me when I was a college senior. Values. What's important to you? Well, it's important for me that the boss values my work, that I hear that. Well, your boss is never going to change, right? Right. So if
Right.
it's important for you to hear that you are valued, you need to find somebody else who can say that to you if you can't live with saying it to yourself. So give up on your boss. It's a lost battle. Why drive yourself crazy wanting a boss that will never praise you?
One thing I
To
give
say,
to Z is that they go in with intention, right? One thing I really give to this new generation is that they're beyond I gotta work here for 25 years. I gotta find they go in with intention. So it's to your point of what can I get from this situation when you're interviewing for these jobs, no matter what, see what you can get to maximize your skills, especially if you don't plan to stay for long, right? Because you're right, the environment might be contentious, but what can you get from that to continue to build your skills to prepare you for that next step ahead? And that's part of that process you mentioned of the long range planning, right? Go in with a plan. What do you want your next steps to be? It's so much great information. Yeah.
So one of the things that Bill and Dave talk about, and I did some training with them with Designing Your Life Institute. If you know what you value, you can build it in for yourself. If you know you need to quit, most of us, when we say, I'm quitting, at some point, I'm quitting, we mentally check out, quiet quitting. And we just say, forget this. I'm not putting in any more effort. I'm just going to do what I need to do. In terms of quitting well, that only hurts me because I can say, I'm going to quit. And what else do I want to do? What new skills do I need to have? While I'm here doing my time before I can actually quit, how else can I get those skills? Can I somehow get my employer to pay for those skills? Can I get on a project and get those skills so that when I do quit, I have better positioned myself to go to the thing that I want to do? And even if I don't know what I want to do, there are ways, and I think you should hire a career coach, but it's not necessary to hire a career coach to think about where else might I be happy? And what do I need to do to make that as smooth a transition as possible? Instead of, I hate my job, I'm going to quit, with or without another job. Because if I quit this job, the odds are the job I got is very much like the one I just left, because that's how it works.
Yeah, you find yourself really just, when you quit without a plan, you'll find yourself really just kind of, I've experienced this, right? And I remember when I was younger and I got out of the military. Oh my God, my friend and I, I'm still in the military now, but when I first got off of active duty, I was 24 years old, and I didn't have a clue or a plan, but I had a college degree. And my friends, we laugh about this now, and I was like, we just got out. There was no cohesive strategy to it. And then what we found ourselves doing just in a sea of
forms.
It took me about a year, I would say, because I maybe a year, to really get my footing after I left the military. Mm-hmm. I stepped into teaching, and because that's what I wanted to do anyway. My first job, shout out to Brackenfield, Mrs. Gutierrez, who gave me my first teaching job, but stepped into teaching and never turned back, right? But I remember being this young person who was no money saved. I didn't have a college degree, and I thought that my military experience was going to carry me. Right? And this is no joke. And I remember going and interviewing for my first job. So if you tuned in and you worked with me at Anna, I want to tell you how that went. I went to a temp agency, and this was very broad. It was 2008. And I said, okay, I went in there, I was like, I want to make $60,000 a year, right? And the young lady was like, hey, we don't have any jobs paying that much at this temp agency. I was like, okay, 50. And I was very smug about it because I had my master's degree. And then I think I just started going down the line. She's like, we don't have 50. And then she said, we do have one that pays 40, but that will only be, you have to have an accounting experience. I remember just literally sitting down there like, okay, well, 35, 30, 29, 28, 20. I literally counted down. And my first job as a military paid me $24,000. And I was so glad to get that job. But when I look back now, and I think, man, all of the opportunities that I had in the military to really plan. And if you knew me back then, you probably thought I did everything right. I got my education, but I did not plan efficiently and effectively, right? And so many times we do that. And so
Excuse me, Chrissy, I can't hear you. I don't know if it's me or you.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. I'm back again.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I was sharing the story about me being in the military, but when we take that big leap, right? Because I want to be careful. We work with a lot of young people. They listen to us both. There's a little bit of planning into it, even though we don't know what we might be jumping into. But what we don't encourage you to do is just, if you don't have any say, there's no plan at all, it's just to walk in and quit your job on impulse that day, right? So from your perspective, when you decided to make that big leap and that big jump, to take that leap of faith, because I was sharing how I just did not plan at all, but I thought I had it all together back when I was in my 20s.
I have thought about how we choose our careers.
Yeah.
And we get it from our parents who I'll only pay for school if you're going to be an engineer for some families. Everyone in our family's always been a lawyer, so that's what you will do. It's just you inherit a profession. You can fight against your family. Everyone in our family's been a doctor. Well, I'm going to be the first one who's not. Regardless of what I actually might want to do, I just decide I'm going to do the rebel thing. And some of us more of a like a real estate. You're buying a house. And curb appeal when you're buying a house is you drive up and you look at it and you say, that's my house. Or, are you kidding? And you never even get out of the car, but you decide whether or not you like it, right?
Yeah.
And I think when, decades ago, we went into whatever was available. If we lived in a factory town, that's what we did. If we lived in a farming town, that's what we did. It was what was there. There weren't the choices. But now there are so many choices. I think young adults get completely overwhelmed. There's some places have like 180 majors. How do you pick a major when you're 17 and you've never even had a part-time job? Well, you look at what other people say is good. The industry, the title, the pay. They have no idea, because they've never walked into the house, what that house has and if it's going to be the right house for them. They do it on curb appeal. And so with the liberal arts kids that I've worked with a lot, they love to learn. They've got lots of skills and abilities, but they don't know how to figure out which ones they want to put into action. I think there are other college students and young adults who major in something because it's practical, like accounting. It's practical.
Yeah.
But they don't have the temperament for it. And so, again, they didn't take the time to do the who am I? What's the job going to be that I'm going to want to be in for a while? In the past, you get in some place and you stay 25 years, was a culture when the employers took care of people. Like here, I'm in Rochester, New York. Kodak was known for taking care of its people. The benefits were phenomenal. The pay was phenomenal. And then it went away. And hundreds and hundreds of people, talented, educated people, were without work. And they were thrust out with my identity's gone. My work is gone. My employer in Rochester, New York was Kodak. Like my employer no longer exists. Film, as we know it, no longer exists.
I was going to say, to your point, you made me think of something that Michael Major had mentioned. It's a study from CBS News. This generation, when we talk about traditional career mindsets, I want two questions for you. Because one, what do you say to that young person or to that person who really doesn't want to go to college, right? They want the option to maybe do a trade. And then this was something that we were having a discussion. I mentioned, he said, there's a recent study came out that 86% of young Americans, they stated they want to be social media influencers. How does that, so we talk a lot because we both come out of higher ed, but we have a generation now that is, hey, and it's not, I've been a dean and department chair managing the vocations trade, but this whole piece of, I I don't want to do any of it. I just want to be a social media influencer. And then what do you say to them? Because these young people, they're going out here, they're getting rich on TikTok, right? And so what is your response to them?
I do the same thing with someone like that I did when somebody said, who did musical theater in high school and they want to go to Broadway. I'm going to go to Broadway. That's quite ambitious. Good for you. What do you need to know in order to be able to do that? Well, I need to know how auditions work. Okay, let's get you to talk with some people who do auditions. Let's get you to talk with some people who not only been successful, but people who have been unsuccessful, because it's an incredibly competitive field. So, do your research, get both sides so you know what you're heading into. In fact, you might want to do some research on how many people actually make it to Broadway. Or, did you know that so-and-so actor didn't hit it in Hollywood until they were 47, and until then they waited tables? But if that's what you want to do, gather all your information and what it's going to take. And sometimes you win a lottery and it falls in your lap. Some of the social media people probably never intended to grow up being that. But in our generation, people wanted to be rock stars or professional athletes. It's not terribly different in terms of what's out there. What is going to make me the thing? So I start with, if that's what you want to do, I will support you in that. The only thing that I ask is that you do your research, that you make an informed choice about what it's going to take. And if you are willing to wait tables in New York and live in a crummy apartment so that you have a chance of going to Broadway, go for it, as long as you understand the price that you're going to pay. And each year you're paying that price is a year that you are not building towards another skill.
Yeah, and I think that you also have to be aware too, is like when you do your research and you acquire your skill, what I would also add to that is pay attention to the skills that you are building and see how, because these, I was trying to do something last night and I had to text my little sister because she is so good she has a degree in marketing. She's so good at the things that I'm not, right? But there's so many crossover skills too. Now, Ann, we had a brief conversation about you are in the process of transitioning. And you're not only going to be helping this group, but also more experienced career professionals as you move into 2024. So can you just tell a little bit about, what are you hoping for and what is your aim as you make this transition with Lighthouse Career Coaching?
Although this probably doesn't sound like a good niche and a marketing person would have a terrible time with it, I am moving towards working with people who are lost and confused at any life stage. So I still love working with the 18 to 22-year-olds who want to know what they're going to be when they grow up. Answer is they won't know until they've grown up, because this generation is probably going to change jobs, I don't know, maybe 20 times before they retire. So what are they going to do? Who knows? The jobs may not exist. But the same lost and confused can come from someone who's leaving the military, like you. You knew no more about the world of work at 24 than you did when you were 16, except you knew some things about the military and what you didn't want to do in the military. But this is true. It's true for caregivers. It's true for people who stay home full time. Whether my husband struggled with it. I've raised kids. I have skills, but they're not going to be career skills. I can get jobs, but is the job going to be enough? It can happen to people, often women who are divorced, who have been reliant on the income of the primary breadwinner, and now are realizing I've got to figure out how to support myself. And how do I do that? And for me, it all circles back around to the values piece. At different stages of our lives, we have different priorities. a young adult who looks at this, the social media stars, that's their understanding of the world of work. It's not broader. They need to live a little bit in order to have a bigger sense of what's out there and understand my skills go this way. But they may want to use those promotion and marketing skills towards solving a problem rather than promoting myself. And that comes down to the values. There's Simon Sinek's book on, what's your why? Why do you work? Why are you here? And I don't necessarily mean that in a spiritual way, although for many people, it is very much a question of faith, of why am I here?
Yeah.
What is my responsibility? How do I use my talents to make the world a better place? What I do is complicated, but it's simple.
Right. I always tell
right now.
We both said that we work backwards, right? I say that my base comes to me with this, basic, hey, when you do my resume, LinkedIn stuff, but we always take that deep dive where it becomes more holistic, right? And then you're kind of starting at that base from the life coach perspective where you start with the why and then it narrows down, right? I start with the narrow and open it up. And I was actually talking to a client this morning to say, the thing about coaching is, even though we'll ask you to take this deep dive, coaching is more so the action-oriented to address the here and now to keep you moving forward, right? It's not therapy, but it's therapeutic in its way. This has been great. And tomorrow, if you guys are tuning in here on TikTok, you're listening to us on this live, come back to this video. Tomorrow is part of this. We're gonna close in a moment, but I definitely have to ask you one more question on leaving we talked about this as career coaches, the Great Resignation, and how this thing has impacted the workforce and the experiences, the transitions. But tomorrow is a new year. And tomorrow from 2:30 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, I will be hosting the Career and Mindset Transformation Virtual Vision Board Party. If you are tuning in on TikTok, click the link in the bio to register. If you're tuning in here on one of our social media pages, click the links in the description to register. But when we talk about leaving, it's the things behind in the past, whether it's quitting your job or leaving bad habits, whatever. And what wisdom do you want to share with us to prepare us for a new year when we talk about the wider perspective of the Great Resignation?
Chrissy, when I saw your vision board party, it struck home. I think one of the things that's critical is that we have a clear vision of what we do want and what we're aiming for. With coaching, you take a person from where they are to where they want to go. But if they can't picture where they want to go, they're moving, but they aren't necessarily making progress. So I want to get in shape. Okay, well, what does that mean? I don't know. We need a little bit more. I want to run a marathon. Okay, now we've got something. That athletic coach may never see that person run a marathon, but at least they have a direction that they're heading in. And they will discover other things as they're moving forward that might be just a little bit better. The book that I talked about, Dave and Bill Burnett's Designing Your Life, they call it wayfinding. Most of us wayfind. And I love that idea for the Great Resignation. You may not know exactly where you're going to go, but wherever you go next, have it match you better than what you're leaving. Move to something rather than what I did. And I can justify it because I can rationalize anything. I was running from, and I wasn't running to. But I think that's the wisdom. Have a picture of where you want to be going. You have a direction so that you can be more effective and efficient as you move through. It's amazing what happens when you have a vision. And I think the vision board is great.
Yeah, and so if you're going to tune in for that part, remember, you can bring your own arts and crafts, and then we'll have a template to help you create a virtual vision board party. And there was something that you just said there that I have to go back to, right? You talked about having a vision, but it was something that you kind of just said on the offset there where you said not being afraid to change, because next year we're going to do a bunch of planning for next year. All of us are sitting here, we're mapping out our goals, we're talking about where we want to go, but the road is going to be a winding road. We've lived long enough to know that there's very few years where things just are a straight path, right? And so if you come to a fork in that road, you may have planned out the best year of your life. In fact, my vision board for last year, and most people don't know this, is that I carried it on my phone, was that I was planning to do WORxK Solutions and CareerCoachRx, which is what I'm doing. But I also planned to move to Houston. And I had this mapped out on my phone. I paid for all of my stuff to go to Houston after my deployment. And I came here to my hometown, well, to where I live now. I came to check my storage on the way back to my unit. And it was just like, no, I'm going to stay here in D.C. After all of this, a year of planning to move to Houston, I'm going to stay in D.C. And I just stayed, literally just when he got an apartment, and just stayed. And I think that, to your point, is that we can plan, and we can have the best plan, and we can have the best vision. We also got to be open to going with the flow, that life happens, right? And so if your road gets a little windy, if you come to a fork, don't be afraid to pick a path and go, because it's all a part of the plan. So you said that literally, but I just want to emphasize it because it was kind of there in the wayside, right? Of setting that vision. And even though you want to be clear about that vision, be open that vision can change, and it's okay.
And if you stick to the vision and don't pay attention to, using it as a highway as an example, there are ways to get off the highway and see something wonderful, amazing, different than anything you've ever thought of it. And you might still get to your destination, but if you follow your head and your gut, and the gut being more of the values and the intuition, you're going to keep finding things that are a good fit if you let it happen and if you work at it. You can't sit back like I was doing and letting the world move me. That's passive. That's, in a sense, giving up. Well, it's the job I have.
And the years go by, and then you find yourself away from your passion, away from that original vision. I can say
I only have 13 years till I talked to somebody who said, I only have 13 years until I can retire from this job. You hate it so much that you're counting the days out from 13 years. There must be something better.
I'll share this because I as a career coach, I don't often share a lot of personal stuff, but you made a point here. I worked on a job, and I thought I'm going to stay here for. It was not a great experience, not a bad, but it wasn't a great experience. And literally, my mama told me to quit, my sister told me to quit, my commander told me to quit. Everybody, I was like, no, this is a great paying job. I'm gonna be here for only 30 more years. And I saw the day, and I'm a coach, and I literally saw the days of my life pass. And I'm telling you, I let that job go, went on this deployment, came back, got a better opportunity, much happier, serving, more purpose-filled, getting to live my path. And sometimes it's like, that's a great example of you got to let go of whatever that, your intuition will always inform you, right? Your gut will always tell you. You know what your skills and talents are, but you got to give the universe an opportunity to allow you to be in a space where that's going to be befitting to you, instead of you trying to fit into a space to fit a narrative that you have in your head that is supposed to be this way, right? I'm supposed to get this good job and stay here for 30 years until I rot, But when you open your mind up, your talents and skills can still be utilized in a space where you're being served and serving other people, and you get more fulfillment. And I could go on for another hour. And hopefully we have a chance to collaborate again in the future on some projects that I've mentioned to you. But I'm going to stop right here and end this conversation. But we have, so much wisdom has been shared in today's podcast. So for people who are looking for that help and support, where can they find you? And I will say, by the way, that all of her contact information is listed in the description. And Cheryl, where can they find you? What other projects are you have coming up next year? You want to share you speaking anywhere? Where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Lighthouse Career Coaching. You can also find me, Ann Shields, on LinkedIn. My website is lighthousecareercoaching.com. And you can write to me at ann@lighthousecareercoaching.com. Or one of the things that I would love to be able to offer people is a values exercise. That if people who are listening would like to take a little bit of time and give some serious thought to what are the things that are important to me and prioritize those. What are the most important things that I don't want to compromise, that are core to who I am? I'd be happy to share an exercise with them if they'd like to do that.
Okay. Do they email you for that, or is it a link that we can put in the description for the YouTube and Facebook?
You can write to me now, and for future editing uses, Christy, I'll send you a link.
Okay, so I'll throw that link in the recording. So this recording will be available on YouTube. It will also be available on Facebook. And you ensure that when they get the link that it requires to put in an email address to get that information, right? So that you can have their contact information as well. Guys, it has been a pleasure today to speak with Mrs. Ann Shields, over 25 years of experience, founder of Lighthouse Career Coaching, and who shared great wisdom, not only about the Great Resignation of in your career and what we're experiencing here in the United States, but also just leaving behind the old and bringing in the new and resigning those things that are no longer serving. So it has been a pleasure today. Again, tomorrow from 2:30 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, we are hosting the Career Mindset Transformation Vision Board Party. That party will also, we have 7 great guest speakers. That party will also serve as a podcast episode too. So if you don't get to tune in tomorrow for the live, then you can listen to us on Spotify and across multiple platforms. So thank you. This is Dr. Chrissy Taylor, founder of CareerCoachRx and WORxK Solutions LLC, and it has been a pleasure